morning.
Good morning.
Hotep.
Hotep.
And it's good to see people here wanting to be alive. My wife called last night and asked, did I hear from you? You know, we come together and we have conversations about how to become. And all over this country, we have churches, we have mosques, we have shrines, we wear crosses, we wear ankhs, we wear beads, we do all kinds of things, as though these things are going to do some magic stuff. These are beautiful beads. I got Ogun, I got Oshun, I got Yemaja, I got Batawa, but what I also have is this plastic and cord. If I don't understand what the meaning of the plastic and cord is trying to represent, I'm still lost. We come to things and talk about getting spirituality and trying to find spirituality and trying to uplift ourselves and trying to find God. We go all around the world, and it's like the little boy who left home, searching this thing, showing back up at about 80 years old, and realized what he was looking for was in his mother's living room before he left home. This thing of spirituality is not about spooking. Okay? We think spirituality is these spooky things. Now we wear symbols. I've got on a nice black shirt with a nice red ankh, because the ankh represents life. And on the back, I've got Gianyami, because that's the African symbol for God. But those are just symbols. Until we become the thing that the symbols represent, nothing's going to happen. We're a nation within a nation. Actually, we are multiple nations within a nation. But we're afraid to be a nation because we don't know how to be ourselves. Because this whole thing starts with the most basic. We want to hear about the grandiose stuff, but it's not about any of that. That's why we keep failing at doing this thing. It's about the most basic thing. No one in this room is going to survive if you can't figure out a way to provide some food, some clothing, some shelter, and some security for yourself and your family. That is the bottom line. You can wear all the African clothes in the world. You can chant all the African language in the world. You can have all the sacrifices you want to do. You can do all the rituals and prayers and meditation you want to do. But if you can't provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for yourself and your family, you've lost the game. You're not even in the game. And that's why we're getting outwitted. People got us dancing to the music of a false notion of spirituality. I was talking to some brothers and sisters. I always go away from my notes, but don't worry about that. Last night, and I asked, where did we come from? And almost everybody will say, from God. No. You came from between the legs of a woman, out of the womb of a woman. There's where creation took place. There is no other creation. There is no one in here that wasn't created in that manner. Now you can dream up and fantasize about all these other creation, Kumbi and God did it. That didn't happen. You came from the womb of a woman. You were begun in that place from the union of a sperm of a man with an egg of a woman. That's reality. Now you can fantasize about any other thing you want. Make up any other mythical god you want to make up. But you better learn the difference between symbols trying to describe God and the reality that is God. When you study any African language and you look for the word God, you're not going to find that word stated that way. In every African language I've looked at, they describe God as the totality of creation. Every and all things at once, including you, including me. There can be no God without you because you're part of the body of the thing that is called God. You're like a cell in God's body. And in being a cell, you're an exact duplicate of God itself. Thus, you have all of the possibilities that you dream the divine have, except you don't know how to wake up your possibilities because you don't know the rules of the game of life. There are rules. And the rules start with you. Finding divine within. Recognizing the nature of the divine within. It doesn't matter, you can do it in any religion actually. I was a Muslim imam for 18 years. I went to Mecca and I actually found the divine in Mecca, and it wasn't Allah. It wasn't what the Arabs was talking about. It wasn't the Arab culture that they sell to the world as Islam. Islam was here when here began to be here. The Prophet Muhammad came to restate something, to tell us something had existed. The man Moses came to restate something. The man Imhotep came to restate something. And they left us all of these symbols and we still can't read them. We still can't read them. We hear the story of Jesus. We're in a Christian denominated church. There was a very African-centered church. I would come to Atlanta just to come to this church because of the ideas they're trying to give to us. Every one of you, and I know it's going to take a minute to really get it. Everyone, you remember when you thought I was crazy? Yeah. And she was a little girl. Y'all thought I was a little bit of, she like my daughter. They thought I was a little bit over the top. I was just up there, orbiting. Every one of you is the God. Every one of you have always existed. Easy way to find that out. You have a mother and father, right? And they had a mother and father, right? And they had a mother and father, and mother and father. And if you just keep going back, you go to grandparents, 2 people, great-grandparents, 4 people, great-great-grandparents, 8 people, great-great-great, 16, great-great-great-great, 32, and great-great-great, 64. And you just keep going back. You're going to end up to the source that initiated all. Because it spreads out like this, then it comes in like this. And you're back at God, because that's the initiator. The first manifestation of God as human is the ancestor of everybody in this room. And that ancestor was God manifesting itself as human. That's what the story of Christ is all about. But white people got it all wrong. They thought it was just one man. It's all men and women. That sacred child that you celebrated on Christmas, that's not a boy child. They made up that rhythm. It's all men and women. When you give birth to your children, you're giving birth to yourself. When you were given birth to by your parents, they gave birth to themselves. And that self has been giving birth to itself since the beginning of time. And there was only one self, the divine. So who then are you? Now that's practical reality. No theologian can argue that one with me. But you gotta really see it. You gotta see the pattern. You gotta see the string that goes from you back to the divine. Then you know what you have to do to build the self, to build you, to become again. See, what the Europeans have done to us is took away our human beingness. Our human beingness is our understanding of the divine within us. And we out here scrapping and struggling. Instead of using love, we use desire. Instead of using caring, we use envy. Instead of using belonging, we use jealousy. Trying to get the thing. He said we got to get it. We spend our whole life trying to get the thing. Then we're like, oh God, I'm dying and I still don't have the thing. Whatever those things are that we were trying to get all of our life. The thing that you wanted was sitting in the mirror every morning, looking you in the face. Who you want to get is the divine that is you. Who you want to get is the divine that is in you. And like I said, once I was harsh. I would say you can't be a Muslim and an African too. You can't be a Christian and an African too, but I was wrong. I can tell you, I was wrong. All of these religions are simply pathways that men and women design to try and find the divine within. Problem is, many of these pathways have moved the divine without. And have you seeking a divine without, in the sky, over here? No. Religion is a tool of spirituality. It is supposed to guide you through practice, developing the right qualities, the right attributes, the right behavior, the right conduct, so that you can develop the kind of energy that will lead to real unity. We look at our beloved Africa right now, with all of that wealth, and it's crying in pain. Every time I get off the plane, I'm crying to see the poverty in the wealthiest piece of real estate on the planet Earth. And you're trying to figure out what is going on. They got the gold, they got the diamond, they got the cobalt, they got the bauxite, they got the cocoa. You know what I'm saying? They got all of these things. They got the cashew nuts. They got everything. And they're walking around in rubber slippers from China and used clothes from America, begging side the road. Something is terribly wrong. But every Sunday, they go to church. And every Friday, they go to gym. The one thing they don't go to is their mothers and their fathers. They don't go to their grandparents. They don't go to their ancestors. The people who had peace before this thing came from the north and ripped our peace apart to use our labor and our minds to build his temple of evil that we call the Western nation states. And we now yearn to be so much a part of it. And then in Africa, we yearn to replicate it. You can't replicate America unless you enslave people for 500 years. You can't replicate America unless you murder nearly 1 billion people. You want to do this? Then you got to be willing to do what they did. That is the historical truth. Now, if you want to build the kingdom that our ancestors have told us about in all of these books we read, then you first have to build the kingdom in yourself. Then you'll recognize someone else who will build the kingdom in themselves. And then you find unity with that person. Most of us, me included, have suffered. Most of youth has spent suffering because we keep chasing you so fine, me so fine. So when me so fine, good, but you so fine, all we do is cause pain. And we go through our 20s and our 30s, suffering from the pain of you so fine, she so fine, he's so fine. Because we got so busy checking out the behind, we forgot people have a behind. Right? And then one day we realize something is wrong. And then we come to centers like this trying to figure out how to fix it. How to find it. How to fix it. How to get rid of the scars. How to wash it off. You know, like the thing about the leper. How to clean it up. The way to clean it up is to look in that mirror in the morning. It says, you are my greatest love. You're my greatest love. And I'm going to show you I love you by making me all that it could be. But it's not that simple. Once you get the idea, though, you've won the war. So we talked about some basics. I wrote down some basic things that people need to think about. I already told you that the basic motivation for everybody in this room is the aspiration to provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for yourself and your family. You can talk about, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. You're doing that to do it, to get money to do it, to provide a home to do it, to buy some clothes to buy. So let's start in our consciousness with what the motivation is about. Food, clothing, shelter. And that doesn't sound all nicey nice to people. But if you don't provide those things, you're going to be homeless on the street somewhere, and you'll still be begging for those same things. Right. So if that's the case, then we must learn in this Atlanta, in your beautiful Atlanta, you have to learn how things work. Basic things. How do we get control of land? How do we get control of the labor? How do we get control of the resources in the communities we live in? I don't want to mess around nobody else's community. Let the Chinese have their thing, and the European have their thing, and everybody have their thing. But the African American and the African Latino better understand their relationship. We are the largest ethnic group in this country, and they got us calling ourselves minorities. Wow. There's no group larger than the African American, African Latino. No group. When I say African American, I'm including the Jamaican, the Haitian, the Trinidadian. There's no group larger than us. Guess what? There's no single group wealthier than us when we combine our total wealth. But we scattered to the wind. Combined last year, the African American community, the African Latino community, we spent $1 3/4 trillion with the people we call our enemy in the United States of America. If you want to get to spirituality, the first thing you got to understand, spirituality is your reality. If you're going to separate what you call spirituality from your daily reality, you've lost the way. You've lost the way. Rituals and ceremonies are reminders to stay focused. They're not the essence of what you're about. And once you are clear that you must get control of land, labor, and resources, then you must understand clearly you must control the economics, the politics, and the culture where you live. A lot of the brothers and sisters, and many of my generation did it too, and a lot of the youngsters are saying it, and I tell them, stop it. I'm not going to participate in the politics in America. I'm not going to go and vote. I'm not going to be a part of this system. As long as you're living here, you're part of the system. Now, if you don't want to be a part of the system, buy a plane ticket, go someplace else. But if you're here, you are a part of this system. The thing is, how do you make it work for you to provide that bottom line, food, clothing, shelter, and security for yourself and your family? That means you got to master economics, which is the wealth in your environment. You got to find out how to get it out of your environment. Now, down here in Georgia, you don't have no gold, cobalt, manganese, but you know what you have? You have land. You have retail potential to sell the goods and services that other people need. You have the tax revenues, the billions they take out of your paycheck every week that comes back to this community for services, but you're letting other ethnic group get it. You go in the blackest neighborhood and all of the firemen are white people. The police are mostly white in the black neighborhood. How does that make sense? Sanitation department. That's where the revenue they took out of your paycheck, it gets sent back down here. The money for social services, the money for medical aid, the money for school aids. All that money came out of your paycheck. And once the federal government took what they wanted, they sent the rest back here to this community. But because you're not organized as a people, because you don't understand the nature of self, another group is taking all of that wealth, billions of dollars every year, and using it to service themselves and provide the food, clothing, shelter, safety, security, education, police protection for their people, and not giving a damn about you and your people. Because we're not involved in the politics of day-to-day living in the community. You can't do it. Spirituality is your reality, not spookality, where you just do some ceremony, do some dancing, spin some beads. I can spin beads. I know what everybody. I got so much. Sometimes I got to lean over like that when I wear them all, right? The day I wear a few of my beads because I love them. And let me just digress. You know what these beads are? In the Latin part of our family, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and Brazil, and Venezuela, the Spanish was so cruel in trying to destroy the African culture and spiritual system. But our ancestors were so wise, they found a way. They wouldn't let us write. They wouldn't let us read books. They wouldn't let us play our drums except in certain places. So the elders decided, how do we preserve our wisdom system? The white man gave us beads. They said, well, they like the trinkets. We gave them beads. Every time they went to market, they came back and said, oh, hey, Jose, here's some beads. Hey, Joe, here's some beads. We took the beads and create a color-coded system that has hidden our wisdom system. So when I look at Ogun, they have us on the surface saying, well, Ogun is just about, he's a warrior. He is the person that made iron. But what Ogun represents in the wisdom system is transformation of the human character. Once the human character marries itself to change in the human character. So they took these beads and hid their wisdom in a color-coded system so that we would have it today if we're willing to learn what the ancestors did. You go back to ancient Kemet. I'll get back to here. They had a story about a Sar, a Set, and Harut. And we tried to flip it and change what we're going to leave the church. Now we're going to go and become the Kemetians. And we're going to go to Kemet. And we're going to now have a Sar, a Set, and Harut. We just abandoned Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. It's the same thing. It's the same metaphor trying to tell the same lesson. That the man and the woman and the child is the foundation of civilization. And you have to understand the sacred nature between the man and the woman and the child. Because they call the offspring of the man and the woman the Son of God. It could just as well be the daughter of God. Because they're trying to tell you the same story. That you are the divine. Ain't no God gonna come in here and do nothing for nobody. All the good that's done on this earth is done by man and women. All the evil that's done on this earth is done by man and women. All the change that take place on this earth is caused by man and women. Not no extraterrestrial force coming in. You are the extraterrestrial. Yes, sir. The earth is spinning in outer space like all other planets. We are all aliens in this thing. You know, think about it. We always think like we some stationary thing and then there's people in outer space. No, you are in outer space spinning like everybody else and everything else. But we don't think of it like that because somebody has changed our minds. The human body has 240 or something or even more elements. Every element that is known to be in existence is in your body. The greatest of the elements is the water. And that's why we have water so sacred. Water, it may not be as good as the rum I had last night, but water beats the rum, all right? I just want to drink some rum. I drink a little Kvazi every now and then. You know? That's right. That's right. You go home to the continent and you go into any sacred meeting, and the first thing they're going to give you a little sip of, not the appetizer, that's a little rough. But you're going to get some palm wine. You know, everything in nature is good for you. The problem is we take too much of things we shouldn't take at certain times and make it bad for us. Our body is the universe. Amen. Our body is the universe. Every sound I'm making this morning is affecting every cell in your body. Every molecule, every atom is hearing me. And they're reacting to me. You may not feel it like we're used to feeling, but they're reacting to me. Every action you took today when you woke up, you informed your system. You informed every cell in your body. Every thought you had, every idea you come up with. Somebody has moved us away from knowing self to the degree we don't even know how to wash our face in the morning. So what we got to do is get back to understand the most basic. If you can't provide food, clothing, and shelter, you can dance, sing, and shout all you want. It means nothing. Y'all understand that? It means nothing. If you can't get control of the economic and the politics and culture where you live, you can cry gentrification all you want, because I don't like the term. Because if you sit here in your community and leave 10 buildings abandoned for 20 years and some white man coming and buying, you screaming gentrification, that is not his undoing of you, that's your undoing of yourself. Because you didn't take the responsibility to own those buildings and turn them into something for yourself. Because you didn't understand your responsibility to economic politics and culture. Economic is your being able to harvest and use the wealth in the environment you're in. If you're in Ghana, you can deal with some gold and some diamond, but here you got to deal with revenues, real estate, and retail and wholesale businesses, and the other service businesses you can do for those who live. If you're not willing to understand how your wealth is and get control of that wealth, then you're going to stay in poverty. And you can cry all of the prayers you want. But there's nothing in any holy book I ever read that said any God was going to come and help anybody. It said that God was going to give you the power to help yourself. And we'll read that over and over and just ignore it over and over. You know? The other thing that we've got to master is politics. We showed our power when Obama was there. He may not have done all of what we wanted him to do, because he couldn't do it even if he wanted to do it. But we showed our power on 2 occasions when nobody thought you could do it. You took politics seriously because you were motivated to do it. We showed our power when we didn't elect Ms. Hillary. Now, we only dropped in our vote by 1%, but that was enough to lose certain sectors of what they call electoral votes that Trump was smart enough to get in the Midwest, because they understood how the game was played. And even though she won the popular vote, she did not win the votes in Ohio and Michigan. There's a couple of states that the Democrats always win. And if you don't win those states, when you tally up those few electoral votes, you lose. And those were states where our votes got marginalized. That 1% cost that election. Not that Hillary would have been any much better than this guy. She would have sounded better. I mean, she would have been more courteous and polite and stuff. But the point I'm making, your politics manages your economics. The politics is the managing instrument for your economics. Because the politics make the rules by how the economic game is played. Politics make the laws. Politics make the regulations on how wealth gets distributed, who gets access to it, how you can use it or misuse it or not use it or misuse it. So you can't say I'm not going to be involved, because you're already involved. You're just involved as a negative. If you want to get involved as a positive, you got to get involved. You don't like the people running for office, then run yourself or find somebody in your community and run them. You have as much opportunity as anybody else if you're willing to fight to have it. The third part is culture. And we think we really got that one. Because now you have, what's my brother with the big movie theater down here? Tyler Perry. Tyler's a beautiful man. I was never hard on Tyler when he had to make what we would have called stereotype movies. Because one thing I understood about Tyler Perry, he employed all those black folks, white folks, threw to the garbage because they were too black for them. Who can throw Cecily Tyson to the garbage? But the white man did. But Tyler picked her up and embraced it and said, don't worry, my big sister, you will have work. And he did that for so many others. And the stories he was telling that we call stereotypes, we know every one of us got a big mama in the family. Who don't come from down south and don't have a big mama? Mine was called Miss Pigeon. You know, everybody got a big mama. But she was just the typical of the power in the black family. He made us laugh with it, and he made the money to do what he's doing now. Let's hope he can continue doing what he's doing, and others can come together with him and help him. I was talking to Brother Forrest last week. He was down here for about 2 weeks with them. Let's hope these black people who have these skills and the technology in that industry, because that movie industry is just one piece of what culture is. See, culture is not the dancing we do. That's a tool of culture. The theater is not culture. It's a tool of culture. Music is not culture. It's a tool of culture. What culture is supposed to do, those tools, is carry the philosophical and ethical ideas and principles that is culture into your mind. That's what they're to do. But if you have somebody else owning your music, somebody else controlling your theater, somebody else making your movies, then the ideas, principles, and concepts and ethical, moral base that should be coming to you will be profane. We saw it happen with rap music. Rap music started out as our young people fighting back, giving social commentary about their condition. People laughed at them at first. They said, oh God, they're making money off of this thing. Not only are they making money off of this thing, they're carrying a message to their people. Dr. King was gone, Malcolm was gone, the Panther Party had been crushed. But the divine and the young people rose up. And so you can take your tongue and your voice and make music as great as any music in the world and tell your story. And then they took it over with money and made it profane. They call it gangster rap and show people killing each other and drinking liquor and all kinds of things. That was not how that thing started out. But the enemy took it over because we didn't have any clarity on what culture was. Now, at the center of your culture is your spiritual system. Your spiritual system is at the center, at the core of your culture. And when we talk about spirituality, we're not talking about what I like to call spookality. We're talking about you knowing the essence of yourself. But you knowing the essence of what you want to become. Dr. Hilliard used to say this is about becoming. And I remember about a month before he died, we were doing something in St. Louis, and I didn't like what I saw in his spirit. And I said, hey, so what's going on? He looked healthy. But he said, James, we just spirits in transition. Don't worry about it. A month later, he made his transition. But he had been informed in his own consciousness that it wasn't just about this. Because he already exists in his children. His children is him. And those grandchildren is him. Every one of you are your mother and your father. And in being that you are their mothers and fathers, and their mothers and fathers, it's the same being transforming. But our job is to, in the ecology and the environment we find ourselves in, is trying to keep up the optimal health of our genetic structure so that it can house our energy structure. Everything in us has an energy field. You ever go to a doctor, first thing they do is check your pulse and your heart. That's in Western medicine. You go to an acupuncturist, he checks 8 pulses because every one of the organ systems in your body has its own rhythm, gives off its own pulsation. But we don't know that. Nobody teaches us that on a daily basis. Now, you ever watch a little black child play some music, can be 2 years old, and they jump up right on point, right on rhythm, right in sync? Because the child, the rhythm in the human body is finding partnership with the rhythm that's coming from another human body or an instrument, and they synchronize. But we get off in some non-rhythmic culture, and we even forget to dance, and we don't understand why. Because we've lost our synchronicity, we've lost our connections with the rhythm within ourselves. That comes back. If we look at food, clothing, and shelter, if we look at controlling land, labor, and resources, we talk about economic politics and culture, then we have to deal with the fundamental reality we're faced with, that we're suffering from post-slavery trauma syndrome. And you're not going to understand that unless you're willing to study history. And we think history is so mundane, we stop studying. We think, oh, we got a degree now, we don't need to learn about black people. Dr. Wade Noble says, history erases the mystery and lets you work your magic. But you've got to know the history. If I was going to build a building and I was an architect, I would study other architects before I could design the building I'm going to build. That would be my architecture design. If I was a doctor and I was going to perform heart surgery, I'm going to study other procedures and other doctors who went before me that had to perform the surgery. Same thing with history on anything. Everything is history. Every time you work a math problem, you can't work that math problem unless you've studied the history of those problem-solving procedures in mathematics. You got to know history. And you have to start with your mom and your daddy. And I was saying last night sometimes, because I know when my daddy left, I was like, 3 years old. And I still remember Frank going around the bed. He's packing his bag. He's arguing with my mother. My mother's holding on to him, crying. I'm going around the bed crying, and I've never seen him since. But I had a grandfather who was my father. I had an Uncle Snowy who was so much of a father, my mother's brother. And then I had a stepfather, a man who married my mama. My mama had 11 children. This man married and raised 11 children that were not his. And him and my mom had 2. One died, the little boy, and my younger sister. They knew something we didn't know. But we had stopped knowing. They knew how to love. And they know love isn't just about the body. Oh yeah, the body is sweet. We should enjoy each other's sweet body. That's part of the gift. But love is about finding the divine within you and merging that divine with the divine within that other person. So you can then create more divine. So culture, you really need to study it. Because the Africans weren't dancing for nothing. Every dance step had a meaning. Every dance twist had a meaning. Everything was telling a story about God and humans, about plants and animals. And when we begin to get that, we'll be all right. But first you got to understand somebody has caused an injury. If you don't know you're injured, you won't fix yourself. You know, you got to heal. Post-slavery trauma syndrome, post-slavery was that physical crime they committed against us. The trauma was the result of that crime. And the syndrome, and nobody states it like I do because they don't want to put the syndrome at the end. See, syndrome means it continues. And if you don't work with that one, you're not going to solve this problem of the damage that was done. We do it to ourselves. And I remember when I got married in Malcolm's ex's sister's bedroom. When my mother and Carol walked out of the bedroom, and Brother Stocks, who was my bodyguard at the time, Ella called me to the bed and said, I want you to do 2 things. I said, well, what do you want me to do? I just got married because you wanted me to get married. I wasn't even ready to get married. And she says, don't make your wife a whore. And never let anybody know how much you love her. Now, don't make your wife a whore part. I kind of got that. Because I was a dude who would go celibate for a year or two just I was in the movement. But I didn't understand, don't let people know how much you love her. But that was that carryover from slavery. See, if we were to survive together as a couple on those plantations, we couldn't let nobody know how much we loved each other. We had to actually practice being mean to each other, rude to each other, in order to be together at night with our children and ourselves. But now it's become a pathology, the way we practice it now against ourselves. But if you don't know the history, you won't know what they did to you. And you don't know what you're still doing to yourselves based on carrying those practices forward. And then there's, what Dr. Nobles called a shattered consciousness and a fractured black identity. That comes from not knowing history. Shattered consciousness and a fractured black identity. Because we don't know our history. History is the only medicine that's going to help you free yourself of this thing. You have to clearly study history. You have to be clear about the culture. So you can understand when you give birth to yourself physically, you can also give birth to yourself culturally and spiritually. But you can constantly keep giving birth to yourself physically, you're going to run into generations of disaster and generations of disaster until you give birth to yourself culturally and spiritually. And that means you've got to study. You got to find that divine within you. It's there. You see it all the time. It talks to you all the time, but most of the time we're not listening because we don't even know we're supposed to be listening to something. We know many times we would have done something. We decided not to do something because some said, nah, don't do that today. Don't go there today. Don't take that particular medicine the doctor prescribed them. And you found out that you made the right decision. That's something you listened to on that one occasion when you should have been listening to on so many other occasions. That something is the thing in you. You wake it up. What culture helps you do is wake it up. What music helps you do is wake it up. But you got to know the purpose and the intent of the music and the purpose and the intent of the culture so that you can be deliberate about waking yourself up. I think it was Khalil Gibran who said it was, they'll say the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. But Gibran said, no, it's not beauty that's in the eyes of the beholder, it's love that's in the eyes of the beholder. And that's a very true statement. It's love, starting with the love for self, that's in the eyes of the beholder. And so we got to go back to understanding that the individual that develops its African ethical moral principle self is the foundation of civilization. Those individuals, when they bond with other individuals and create a positive mate relationship called family, they build an African family. Then that African family partners with other African family and they build the African neighborhood. Then those African neighborhoods partner with other African-like neighborhoods and they build the African community. Community and neighborhood is not the same thing. Neighborhood is you live in the same place, you have a common history, you have a common culture, you have a common language, but you own nothing. You're renting from everybody. You're buying from everybody. A community is when a neighborhood begins to own its businesses, retail and wholesale. Own its real estate. Control its school, its police, and its fire. Then you are a community. Then this community combines to form an ethnic nation. I'm going to come back to that in my closing because that's a very important piece. And those ethnic nations come to form the greater nation, African nation state. Now the ethnic nation, about 60 to 70 million people calling themselves African American. You're made up of all of the genes of Africa. They brought us from East Africa, South Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, West Africa, and we amalgamated. We amalgamated with the Native Americans, the Chickasaw, the Creek, the Comanches, the Owendals, and others. And we created another ethnic nation. And because of our physical experiences and political experiences we've had that molded our character, we have become a tribe unto ourselves. In the same way that Yoruba is a tribe and have no contradiction, I can be Yoruba, I can be Nigerian, and I can be African. The African American can be its own tribe, still be African, and still be American. Because America is not a race, it's not a tribe, it's a geopolitical place. We live here, you can't deny that. If you deny that, that's denying your reality. Now, if you deny it, I say, buy the plane. Hebrews like, brother, buy the plane to Israel, jump on El Al. Brothers say, well, I'm on Akon, I'm not an African American, and jump on Delta and go on over to Ghana. And, I'm trying to be realistic. If you're going to live in this house, you better own the house you live in. And you can't own it by denying that the house even exists or that you're a resident of the place. That's not spirituality. Your spiritual is tied up with all of the rest of what you are. You can't separate them. There's an energy that flows in you and everybody else that is connected or should be connected with the energy and the environment you are, connected with the enemy of the grass, of the trees, of the flowers, of the water, of the air. Because if I cut off this oxygen, you're out of here. If I get rid of all the trees and there's nothing to absorb the carbon monoxide, you're going to be in a toxic environment and you're not going to live very long. So this whole environment is interdependent on one another, including you. So when you're talking about spirituality and you leave the trees out, I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about spirituality and you leave the water out, I don't know what you're talking about because that's not spirituality. If you're talking about spirituality just for yourself and you leave me out, that doesn't make any sense. And so we've got to redefine some of these things, but starting with the basic, because the basic tells you what your needs are. And then that informs you on what you got to do to service those needs. But at the end of the day, you got to prepare the you. You got to prepare the temple. That's you. Because you are the greatest leader you're ever going to meet. Your mind is the greatest teacher you're ever going to know. But you're not going to meet that teacher and know that mind unless you begin to change the self that that teacher and that mind lives in. And it's not easy, but it's the only way out. You know? So the game of life, if you don't eat, you're going to die. If you don't drink some water, you're going to die. If you're not properly sheltered, you'll eventually die. But how to play it? How to play it is to face the fundamental reality of your location and your condition. We are located in the United States of America, and we live under certain conditions. We watch Mr. Trump, the president, fighting, and we think he's the buffoon. You don't build what that man is built being a buffoon. Don't let the papers play you. You don't get that kind of political control in New York unless you're tied up with La Cosa Nostra from the bottom to the top, especially in the building and construction industry. Giuliani is La Cosa Nostra. That's why he's there. He's looking out for the family's interests. Trump is backed because you'd be surprised how much the Genovese family own of the aerospace industry. You think you know? You need to study history. Who controls the airline industry? We never think of that. We just fly Delta and we fly Southwest. Who controls the industry? And you'd be surprised who you think runs this country don't run this country. Trump is nothing but a pawn in the game, a tool that the big boys are using. And if he doesn't play the game well enough, you know what'll happen to him. You know, they love John Kennedy, but he wouldn't play the game and puff the Magic Dragon, and his brother wouldn't play the game and puff the Magic Dragon, and they tried to take Ted out, but that didn't work, but they ruined his life so he could never be a factor. You know, we saw them take Dr. King at 39, Malcolm at 39, and we still not paying attention. We're so busy trying to blame the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We don't see the FBI, the CIA, the National Intelligence Agency, and all the other people involved in those assassinations. Yeah. That's why you got to study history. There's books out on all of this stuff. You got to know the history of the people you come from. Because if you're going to find God, God is really truth. It sounds like a cliche when people sing it or say it, but God is truth. And even in the book that even I rejected, and I love the Bible. I grew up in the church. I knew the Bible before I was 18. I read it cover to cover because Papa was a preacher. He didn't play that stuff. This is St. Anne Baptist Church back on the plantation in South Carolina. They was just roughing church back in those days. You know, we went to church 7 days a week, studying something. So, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It says, truth alone will set you free. The first truth you want to know is stand in that mirror and tell the truth to yourself about yourself. You don't have to tell it to nobody else, but tell the truth to yourself about yourself. That's the first phase of healing and growth. And if you can do that one, you can move the other stuff out of your way as you go along, because now you're a force unto yourself. Now you're a living spirit. So the game of life is really the game of love. It is the game of truth. You can use any religion to make it work, but you got to be sincere. You got to be honest. You got to be faithful. I could use Islam. I could bismillah and never hear better than anybody out here. I studied that Quran from cover to cover, and then what I found, there was no fundamental difference in none of them. I read the Rig Veda, the Upanishad, the Vedic hymns, the Book of the Tao, the Buddhist scriptures, threefold Lotus Sutras. It's no shit. All of them say the same thing. All of them say the same thing. Different people in different locations in the world at a different time in history, under different circumstances, trying to find the tools to help them elevate themselves to a higher level. That's all it is. And so here you are, looking for the tools to help yourself. And the first tool is to know yourself and to know who you're looking at as your mate or your partner. And be honest. Give up the fear. Malcolm said the secret to life is to have no fear. Find the divine within, then practice the divinity that you've become. And everybody will know who you are. That is the only game. And at the end of the day, life is not a game at all. It is the only thing that is. And we must learn it and master and understand it. We can build. There's nothing wrong with dressing in nice clothing. You know, there's nothing wrong with driving a nice Mercedes Benz down the street. A nice car. There's nothing wrong with going to a nice vacation once or twice a year if you can afford it. There's nothing wrong with buying gifts for your children. I stopped celebrating Christmas. I still don't celebrate it as Christmas. I do the winter solstice. But my grandbabies, they live in a world where everybody around them is doing this thing, and if I pulled them out of this thing, I saw the harm. You saw it did to some of my children. They were confused. Everybody else in the world doing this, and Daddy got us doing this. So I had to find a way to let them be a part of it and explain what it really is. So when I got home 2 nights ago, I was going to ask my daughter, where's the little Christmas tree y'all put up? But Leah ran and said, Grandpa, put up the Christmas tree, and I did it all by myself. But she knows it's the winter solstice. She knows we give gifts to each other because we love one another. And so she's been for 2 weeks, this is my 10-year-old, for 2 weeks, she's been up in her room making gifts out of her little plastic. Not just to send you some of the stuff that Stella has done. She's making gifts for everybody in the family because her mom says there'll be no gifts that we don't make. Because in that making, we'll show our love for each other what this is about. The point I'm making is that we got the tools we need. We have to learn how to use them well. You can't do that without studying, without reading, without researching. And then you have to come together with a group like the people here and give it a chance to work together and see if you can do something different. You know, there's some place that's not going to let you say some of the things. They certainly won't have me there say what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? So you're in a place where people are saying, let's find our way back to ourselves. Support this place. Come to this place and learn the lessons. Loan your mind and your thoughts to this group. Grow it. But don't grow into just another Christian group that got successful. Grow into an instrument that can teach other people how to free themselves. Teach them how to know themselves. Not have them dependent on you. The best leader is, when the work is done, this is loud say. When the work is done, the people say, look what we've done. The best leader is, when the work is done, the people say, look what we have done. Thank you very much.
Indeed, the standing ovation is in order. That was an awesome message. We thank Professor Small for that.